and Robert J.S. Brown.
Mm-hmm. And you're recording this oral history for the Atomic Heritage Foundation on June 3rd, 2015 in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Right. How did you become involved in the Manhattan Project? Can you tell us about that?
Well, like most people in the Army, it just happened the Army sent them there and they don't know why. However, like many people about my age, I started college in the fall of '02 and very soon had to go in the Army.
Okay.
I had the great good luck to be sent for 9 months to Ohio State in this ASTP program.
That's right.
To study electrical engineering.
Okay.
I was then sent to Los Alamos, which of course I had never heard of, and made very good use of what I'd learned in electronics.
So did you become part of the Special Engineer Detachment?
I was in the Special Engineering Detachment.
You were in SED?
The SED,
Right.
Yeah.
And who did you work with at Los Alamos?
I worked under Don Hornig.
Under Hornig, okay. Mm-hmm. And what did you do for Dr. Hornig?
I worked on electrical aspects of detonation for the spherical bomb,
Okay.
which involved delivering large amounts of electric power in a very short time, very simultaneously to many points around this sphere.
When did you really know that you were working on an atomic bomb?
Well, when I first knew, at least for sure, there was a meeting someplace that involved both the white badge and the blue badge people. The white badge people could be in on all of these things.
Right.
I was blue badge. And George Kistiakowski, high up, head of the division I was in,
Right.
dismissed all of the white badge people and told the rest of us what the project was all about.
Really?
I don't think he was supposed to.
Uh-huh. So that's when you learned that you were actually working on an atomic bomb.
Yes, it was. I had a clue, but
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and then shortly after that, I got the white badge. So
Okay. And got even more information about what was
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
Right. And who were some of your colleagues under Dr. Hornig?
Well, actually, I put a list in my pocket of names that I recognized.
Oh, good.
There.
Okay.
I get the wrong.
Wrong list there?
No, wrong end of it. But in that group,
Yeah.
a fair list of names. Do you want me to actually?
Sure. No, tell us who they
Well,
were.
I worked under Don Hornig.
Right.
I also, from time to time, saw his wife, Lily Hornig.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, rode with them up to Colorado skiing one time.
Okay.
And then Keith Henderson was a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Tony or J. Anton Hoffman,
Mm-hmm.
son of the then famous pianist Joseph Hoffman.
Really? Uh-huh.
Ben Betterson, who is here.
Yeah, you saw him.
Warren Key, an ensign in the Navy. Ying Halpern, the Ying is a nickname. A commander in the Navy, Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
Monty Smith, Frank Fortine,
Mm-hmm.
John McNamara, another ensign, maybe Marvin Wyman, Rick Condit, and I was many times, he and his wife Hilda had me to their place,
Okay.
which taught me how to ski. Art Carson, Dick, and then Dick Beecham and also his wife Jane, they had me to their place many times. Martin Stearns, Marshall Rubel, he was not only, he simultaneously went through NYU and what's it, a conservatory. He was a superb pianist.
Mm-hmm.
And Gunther Rudenberg, Phil Moon, and also I'd been at their place with his wife. He was from England.
He was British.
From Birmingham.
He was here.
Don Harms and I ran into a son or grandson of his right here at this meeting. John McNamara and George Kappelman. Those were in my group.
Okay. Okay.
A list of others.
So you were given a white badge rather than a blue badge.
Eventually, yes.
Yes, eventually.
Yeah.
And in what ways did the security of all of this affect you? Was it noticeable? You were told not to say anything to anyone, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, and did you notice any security people around? And in what ways was the secrecy of the project?
There were a few times when they came and asked people lots of questions because some letter had been sent. One time they examined all the typewriters in the place to find which one typed something. However, I was not really aware of the 2 or 3 people there who later turned out. I was in the same barracks as, I've forgotten the name.
Fuchs?
No,
Hall?
In the Army.
Theodore Hall?
No, it's
David.
Greenglass.
Greenglass. Yeah.
Greenglass.
I was a couple of bunks away from him.
No kidding.
I didn't really know him.
No. But I mean, he later turned out to be someone who gave information to the Soviet Union. Yeah.
But I didn't know anything.
No.
Then, actually, I was at a party. I was introduced to Klaus Fuchs.
Really?
And
what was your impression?
I mentioned to people that the main reason I remember the name is how carefully the woman that introduced us pronounced his name.
Yes.
No, he was a very serious person, but I didn't get acquainted.
No, he was a pretty good scientist.
And you know, briefly exchanged a few words, but didn't know anything about it.
And do you remember the exact date that you went to Los Alamos? It was 1940.
Well, I can't name the date, but it was late February, early March of 44.
44. Okay, so you were there about a year and a half, and then the bomb went off.
Yeah.
Where were you? What about the test bomb at Trinity? Did you?
Well, I'm the last one that hooked any wires to it.
Really?
And my boss, Don Hornig,
Yeah.
was asked by Oppenheimer to babysit it during the night because of a storm. The shot was delayed.
Right. So you were there during the Trinity explosion, the test explosion, and helped prepare it.
Yes.
And it was successful, of course.
Yes. And we all said, thank goodness.
All of that hard work went into making it a success. Did you ever run into General Groves or have any contact with him?
Well,
the Army
at the time of the test, even shared a restroom, but no, I never had any conversation.
Okay.
With
and what about Oppenheimer?
Well, I did. In fact, at the time of the test, as I mentioned, was delayed because of a thunderstorm, electrical storm.
Right.
There was a so-called rehearsal for the test the day before, and there was a misfire because there were 1,000-foot long wires out in the desert, and during a thunderstorm, it doesn't surprise anybody that some unwanted signals come in. So after that misfire, Oppenheimer told me that he thought that we should have tested everything to destruction. And
Really?
he was alarmed that it didn't work, or that it misfired. And I told him that my boss, Don Hornig, had asked not to carry out even the rehearsal during an electrical storm.
Wow.
There's no surprise that things misfired. It turned out that there was a rush to do the test that we didn't know about, because Truman wanted to know whether it worked or not at the time of this Potsdam conference.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, Oppenheimer must have been very nervous.
Oh, he was
just a bundle of
he
nerves.
was warm to a frazzle, yes. Oh, and it was sort of evident.
Right, and it was evident, even visibly, it lost weight and smoking and all of this bad habits. So you were there at the test, and then well, you knew that there was going to be the use of the bomb soon afterwards.
Sure.
And where were you then? You were, I suppose, back at Los
Alamos.
Back on the hill.
And listening to the radio because we knew
It was coming at some point. And people were probably, some of your colleagues probably disappeared. I mean,
some went over there.
Yeah, some went over to Tinian, to the island to help.
Yeah, but I did not.
You did not. You stayed on the hill. So first there was the use of the Hiroshima bomb, the uranium bomb, and then the second bomb was the Fat Man bomb, which had the implosion.
That's the one that
you worked on
electrical parts of.
Right. And then how soon afterwards did you leave Los Alamos?
Oh, not in, I can be specific, not until February 17th of the next year.
The next year.
That's the date I was discharged from the Army.
Oh, okay. So you were still the SED at that point, and I mean, basically you're in the Army.
I was still in the Army, yeah.
And you were then discharged.
Yes.
And what did you do afterwards in the...
Go back to school.
You went back to school and got your degree?
Yeah, I had started at Caltech just before I had to go in the Army.
Right.
I returned and got a BS there.
Okay.
And then went to Minnesota for graduate work.
Okay.
PhD in physics.
So you didn't even have a college degree?
Oh, no.
When you first were at
I didn't
Los
even
Alamos.
have finished 1 year. Well, except that I had an academic year at Ohio State.
Right.
In the Army.
Right. And you had the ASTP.
Yes.
Army Specialized Training Program, which was a kind of a funnel. It kind of directed intelligent
people,
young Army GIs into...
Yes, several that were in the SED were with me at that ASTP.
Right.
Including Ben Bedderson, the one next to the
Ben is here, right? And he went on to be I think a professor at NYU.
NYU.
Right. So you eventually got your doctorate.
Yes.
At Minnesota.
Yes.
And what did you do then for the rest of your career?
My first job was in research, oil field research with what's now Chevron Oil Company, Standard of California.
Okay.
And my entire career within one job.
And you stayed in that?
Yeah.
And you raised a family?
Yeah.
And had children. And did you ever speak about your Los Alamos days?
Yes.
They knew about it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, I know some people say their parents or something
never said a word. It's been my experience.
Describe classified information
No.
how something worked.
But in general, you told them that you had worked on
some of the
bomb.
people that I knew or heard.
Yeah. And I suppose your colleagues at the, what was the name of the place where you worked? The Chevron? No, it was...
Well, yeah, they started calling themselves Chevron a while after I started to work.
Okay.
The laboratory was in La Habra, California.
Okay.
And I was at least centered there the entire career.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it was oil field research
Right.
as opposed to refinery and chemicals and products and all of that.
And I suppose your colleagues, your colleagues there, they knew you worked on the bomb?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you were kind of a special person.
Well,
And over the years, did you ever see any of your colleagues, your SED people, the people that you mentioned before? Did you have any opportunities of visiting Los Alamos, reunions, maybe neighbors that were nearby that you once worked with?
well, I had not. I had visited Los Alamos a couple of times without seeing anybody that was there during the war.
Yeah.
It happened that several people from Minnesota took jobs there after the war.
Okay.
I'm still in contact, at least with the widow of one of those
Mhm.
at Los Alamos. But that was after the war.
So during the time that you were at Los Alamos and working on the bomb, did you always have confidence that it would work, or did you ever feel as though
Not exactly. I mean,
it was still
there's just so many things
could go wrong?
that could go wrong that worried that one of them might.
And it might not work. So you were very happy after the Trinity test.
Oh, yes.
That gave
Oh, yeah.
confidence to everybody that things were being done correctly.
Yeah.
And of course, the Hiroshima bomb didn't need to be tested at all, but the scientists were very confident that it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really testimony to how clever or how knowledgeable those people were.
And what a thorough and careful job they did.
And what a good job they did. So the quality of the people, beginning with Oppenheimer and other people, well, Hornig and Kistiakowsky and,
Oh, yes.
and Beta, and I mean all of these were very, very smart,
Well, the place
clever
was
people.
full of not only smart, but famous people. And
Right.
a lot of,
Nobel.
not famous, but also smart.
And there were a few Nobel Prize winners already there.
Yeah.
Did you ever, a couple of times, Niels Bohr, the Danish
Yes.
physicist, visited Los Alamos.
You know, he was there for a while.
He was
more,
there.
more than visited.
He was there.
Anyway, I never actually spoke with him, but I recall him on the ski slope. He was already sort of old, or at least
Yeah.
from
Right.
the viewpoint of a 20-year-old. And
But you knew he was around, and
Yes.
he'd come,
yeah,
and
these people were not called by their real names.
no.
Over the paging system, he was Dr. Nicholas Baker,
Right.
still the MB.
Yeah. But then, they gave code names.
Yeah.
What about Enrico Fermi? Did
Well,
you have any?
almost every Saturday night,
Yeah.
I went to the square dance,
Okay.
and he and his wife and daughter came to that.
All right.
And maybe I should mention, or at least at some time, that later the nearby Indian village of San Ildefonso
Right.
invited the square dance group for a dance evening.
Okay.
We did their dances, they did ours.
Right.
And I took pictures there, and I have one of Enrico Fermi being introduced to Maria Martinez.
Oh, the famous potter, yeah.
Yes, and she was essentially the matriarch of that
Right.
Indian village.
She's quite
Yeah,
famous.
the famous potter.
Very famous, yeah. Right. So where did you live at Los Alamos?
Barracks.
In the barracks?
Yeah.
Very primitive, I suppose, not very fancy. It was okay.
They were reasonably warm. I mean, there were stoves
Yeah.
in there, and there were showers.
And did you ever visit Santa Fe, for example?
Occasionally, yes.
Occasionally, they let you go.
For instance, at Fiesta time, each year there was,
Okay,
which was
that was nice.
colorful and fun to visit.
So there was a social life at Los Alamos, in
Yeah.
addition to the hard work that
Oh, yeah.
you did every day,
Yeah.
square dancing, and so, and even visiting. It's too bad you didn't buy any of the pots of Mrs. Martinez.
Oh, yes.
You'd be a wealthy man here, a very wealthy man. I see on Antiques Roadshow, they sometimes have her pots.
I did one time in neighboring canyon make a little effort and climb up
Yeah.
to a cave that had been inhabited and found small shards
Wow.
of a pot from very long ago.
So, when you visited Santa Fe, was it? I mean, you were told not to say anything.
Oh, that is right.
Huh? You were told not to say anything.
Not any unnecessary conversations, not to say anything.
No, right. And General Groves, who was in charge of the whole business,
Yeah.
was very concerned
Oh, yes.
with security
Oh, yes.
and with scientists just talking about this and that. So if you went to Santa Fe, there were probably some of his agents.
Oh, yes. Well, I didn't know anything about it, but yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
that keeping an eye on you. That
Which
you didn't
makes,
say,
it makes sense, yeah.
this was a big secret.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big secret.
Well, you know, the mail was censored in both directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just what I sent out, but
What came in?
what came in.
Right. Right.
They read it to see if it showed having given out any information.
I know. So you were watched, even though you didn't. You weren't aware all the time that you were being watched.
Yeah.
But there was strict security, all sorts of things. Right. So, well, how did you feel after the bomb was used and the war came to an end? I mean, was that a sense of accomplishment and
Yes, but you might say relief that
relief?
nothing went wrong.
Okay.
Well, you know, Oppenheimer famously said this thing from the Bhagavad Gita about
Yeah.
destroyer of worlds.
Right.
But I think he too, like almost everybody, was immensely relieved
Absolutely.
that nothing went wrong.
I know. And so was General Groves.
Oh my goodness. Oh yes.
And that it had a role in ending the war.
Yes.
A war that had gone on for many, many years. And thousands of GIs were in the Pacific
That is right.
being killed. And some of them were perhaps engaged in a forthcoming invasion of Japan, with physical.
Sure.
And the bomb prevented all of that.
It also prevented the corresponding Japanese casualties. I mean,
Yeah.
there are casualties for the two bomb shots, but many people figure that there would have been even more Japanese casualties in an invasion.
I know. And of course, every day, the conventional bombing was going on. Curtis LeMay and the B-29s and conventional bombs were being dropped on Japan.
Oh, well, the conventional bombing of Tokyo killed as many as at least one of those
I know.
nuclear bombs.
Right. So, but you did have a sense at the time of, I would think, having a role in ending a horrible war.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the bomb helped to do.
Well, a lot of us on the project had a sense of urgency and all of that, without always focusing on killing a bunch of Germans or Japanese.
Yeah.
Just a sense of urgency and purpose.
But there was no doubt in your mind that at some point, if this thing worked, it was going to be used.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, that was the momentum of
Yes,
the project.
That's right.
And General Groves was pushing everybody to work harder and
Oh, yes.
faster, and through Oppenheimer. You know, in the beginning, Oppenheimer was viewed as someone. Why did they choose him? I mean, he has no administrative experience. He's a theoretical physicist. Yet he turned into a charismatic leader.
I was about to say exactly that.
Right.
He did indeed.
Uh-huh.
He gave some talks, and they really got the people. Yeah.
And apparently, one of the things that he did was to help solve problems, but make everybody feel as though they had a part in solving the problem.
He did that very well.
He did that very well. And I think that's one of the attributes of his leadership and why people thought so highly of him, who worked under him. And in the beginning, he seemed like an odd choice.
Yeah, a lot of people apparently thought so.
But General Groves thought, he's my man. He's the man. He's the man. And of course, he had a background of leftist, even some political views that were, way over there. But that didn't interfere with his job. I mean, I think he was very ambitious. After the war, became a famous person on the cover of Time. And then got into some trouble with his security clearance. People were after him, and you followed all of that after the war, and probably felt. How did you feel about all of that? The treatment of Oppenheimer, and this is in the early '53.
Really resented all of the treatment of Oppenheimer.
Yeah. He was being mistreated, and later we found out that he absolutely was, that people had a vendetta against him. And but the people who worked with him, for him, stood up for him for the most part. During that terrible trial that he went through, which really ruined him. I mean, it really destroyed destroyed him. Did you ever know Parsons, William Parsons?
I've seen him around, but not.
He was on the ordnance team there, and he was and he was another high person at the laboratory under Oppenheimer.
No, I know who he was. Yeah, I've seen him around, but I never talked with him.
Okay. And we've touched upon Fermi and Bohr and all of these quite famous people. Many people after the war got Nobel Prizes. Val Fitch, did you ever know him? Val?
Yes, went on outings with him. Yes, I knew him.
He was an SED.
Yes.
and later got a Nobel Prize.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I visited him in Princeton later.
Yeah. So,
Well, another person that eventually got one was Fred Reines.
yeah.
He and his wife they were civilians.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife had me to dinner many times.
Okay.
He gave some lectures on mathematics of soap bubbles and
Yeah.
taught me a little bit the calculus of variations.
And didn't he, isn't he one of the people who talked about the change in the climate?
Not that,
No?
well, not that I don't know about it.
That, you know, the amount of carbon that would go into the atmosphere would eventually warm the planet.
I don't know about his.
Yeah, I think he might be one of the people who did that. So,
He was also a very good singer. He was in, so the programs were put on
yeah,
at,
in Fuller Lodge.
there were no outside
No,
shows coming in.
so you had to use your talent that was among the laboratory people in Fuller Lodge in the big
Yes,
building.
yeah.
Yeah. Is that where you took your meals?
No, not, I was in the Army. We have a mess hall, not Fuller Lodge.
So there, so even though you were an SED working for Hornig, you were still just in the Army and
Yeah.
kind of a lesser person than the other.
I suppose.
Yeah. So there was some segregation.
Really, the SEDs were treated pretty well
Yeah.
I mean, not looked down on too much by the civilians.
You were not on the battlefield,
And we were glad.
and you should have been glad for that because
Yes, I was.
they eventually ended the ASTP program later in the war because they did need more infantry people.
Well, I don't,
So
maybe I don't know just when the program was ended.
yeah, but you were on the front end.
Early 1944 is
Yeah.
when.
Well, I think later that year they ended the ASTP,
I think that's probably, yeah.
and those people who were destined to maybe be, you know, to get the courses at the different universities off to the battlefield.
Yes, I think so.
I think so. So I think you were
Lucky.
among the lucky ones.
Yes.
And had a good experience. Eventually, as an SED, did you ever know Arnold Kramish? Kramish.
No.
Arnold, he was an SED too, but I don't think he was. He might have been at Los Alamos. And later you found out that some of these people that you had observed committed espionage. You mentioned Fuchs. Did you ever know Theodore Hall?
No.
He worked for Rossi, Bruno Rossi.
I know who wrote, yeah.
Yeah,
I
you worked
did
under
some-
him.
I did some, well, for a little while I was in an electronics construction group.
Okay.
Built some stuff for Rossi.
Okay. All right. Okay. And in 1950, Fuchs was discovered as a spy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I was not in the Army.
Oh, no, you were long gone. I mean, you had started your career and everything,
Right.
but you
No,
sort of
I read about it
remembered.
couldn't help reading about it. It was everywhere.
I know it was all over the newspapers here, and yeah, at that time he had gone. He was a German communist who became part of the British team
But yes,
and came to eventually Los Alamos, and then went back to England
yes,
and was discovered to be
yeah.
a spy in England and put into prison. Did you ever have any contact with Edward Teller?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one was he gave a quantum mechanics course
Okay.
to just anybody that wanted to come.
All right.
And even though he is the famous hawk, it was notable that when he thought something was interesting or cute, he would break into a sort of giggle talking about it. And in this quantum mechanics course, he gave a discussion of Schrödinger's cat.
Yeah.
There's a new book out, which my son just got for me.
About the cat.
About Einstein's dice and Schrödinger's cat. But he would tell about that and then break into this giggle.
Of course, he became quite famous as a kind of antagonist to Oppenheimer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Richard Feynman? Did you ever?
Oh, he gave a bunch of
quite a
interesting
character.
talks, and I have talked briefly with him, just wandering around a couple of times.
Okay.
And then after the war, I went back as an undergraduate at Caltech, and
Right.
Feynman
Oh,
was
Feynman
there.
was there. Yeah. 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 So a lot of people. It worked. Relief. I'm going back to Chicago, to Caltech, to Berkeley, wherever. But some of them stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And Oppenheimer left and gave over the responsibility to Bradbury.
Bradbury.
North Bradbury, right. So, at that kind of crucial time, what did you see ahead? I mean, was the Soviet Union already kind of a menace? And what was this laboratory going to do? Were you going to make more bombs? Or what? I mean, it was kind of ambiguous what direction would be taken after the war. We know what happened. We know that the United States built tens of thousands of nuclear weapons, and there's a second laboratory at Livermore and so on. But in 1945 and 1946, that time that you were still there, what did the world look like? I mean, there was great satisfaction that this horrible war was over.
That really was the main thing a lot of people felt, including me.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know very much about the future, and in particular, all the problems there would be with the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't all that conscious of
Mm-hmm.
that at the time.
But of course, the one big fight right at in the fall of 45 and the beginning of 46, is the United States going to leave it in the hands of the Army, the Manhattan Project?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be a civilian
Yeah.
organization, the Atomic Energy Commission?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is that really battle about which was going to be, what was going to be done with whatever future
Yeah.
atomic energy had. And of course, it turned out that it was put in civilian hands, and
Yeah.
taken
Well,
out.
I thought that was.
That was a wise choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think everybody did. And,
Yeah.
I think, and General Groves was sort of the symbol after the war. We can't leave it in his hands.
Yeah.
He's the military man, and he's the Army.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go in another direction. And, I honestly even think that General Groves, he didn't want the Army to continue to control it. I mean, he had
Yeah.
talked
I
about
wasn't into
yeah,
that very much.
no. But there were a group of scientists who organized themselves. You were gone by then, I think. You had
Yeah.
gone back to school. But this fight, if you will, which was a policy
Sure.
issue in Washington.
There was this Union of Atomic Scientists. I
Right.
joined
The
that.
Federation of Atomic Scientists.
Federation, yeah.
All of those scientists wanted the civilian,
Yes. Yes.
and eventually Truman agreed with them and
Yeah.
crafted the Atomic Energy Act and so on. You knew a lot of classified information,
Yes.
and was that ever a problem after the war?
Not really.
Not really.
I mean, I didn't divulge a lot of that.
You knew what to say and what not to say,
Yeah, and
And it
it
didn't
wasn't
have-
a very big problem.
and it really didn't have anything to do with your new job, but with your different jobs.
That's right.
So it was history. It was left behind. So we've got a few more minutes here before 10 o'clock. So you've come back 70, more than 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. and
Right.
seen some of your old friends, Ben and
Just one.
Just Ben?
Ben Betterson.
just Ben.
Another one of my best friends was Hans Courant,
Yeah.
who was on the list here, but he hasn't
He
showed up.
didn't turn up yet. Yeah. I don't know. So you know him as well.
I knew him quite well. I was in a group with him
And where do you live now?
in Pomona, California.
Oh, you came all the way from California. So you
And I have with me my daughter, who is a professor in Claremont of Pomona College,
okay.
and son Eric, who is an architect with the University of California at Santa Barbara.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. So, well, I'm very glad that you made the trip and that you seem pretty. How old are you, Mr. Brunhike? Huh?
90?
You're 90. Wow. So you were a very young man when you went
I
out
was
to.
still in my teens when I arrived. Just barely, but
When you arrived at Los Alamos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was still a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes.
That's what you were. Well, there were a lot of young people. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, all your SED.
Oh, many of them were just about that.
Yeah, they're the same age, and the ones that are here now have to be 90, 90
Yes.
91,
Yeah, that is right.
92. I mean, so so you seem still in good health. Have you ever written anything about your experience? Or have you ever had any oral histories before with?
I don't know about oral. I live in a retirement community,
Okay.
and quite a while ago, a person there assembled material and published a book on what people in that community had done during World War II.
Wow. Okay.
So
that was interesting.
the second volume of that has a chapter largely written
About you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's very good. Did you ever go to Oak Ridge? No, you.
Well, when I was being sent from Ohio State to Los Alamos, we were first sent to Oak Ridge and stayed there about a week
All right.
while they were deciding who goes where.
Wow.
All I knew about Oak Ridge that there was a lot of mud around and some wooden walkways over the mud.
It was a terrible
I
place.
did not learn anything about it. And then some of the people from Ohio State, that is the Army, stayed at Oak Ridge
Yeah.
and worked there.
Some of the SEDs.
Yes.
Right. But you went on to Los Alamos.
Yes.
Yeah.